Article 26. Article 26 is an article to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a ground lease for the development of senior housing on town-owned land off Ice House Road. This is an article that was sponsored by the Affordable Housing Trust. You can find the article on page 55 of the warrant report. Article 26 does require 2/3 for passage, and we do have a motion and a report from a warrant committee member, Bob Sliney.
Article 26. Move that Article 26 be passed as printed in the warrant, except that the phrase age 62 plus after the phrase senior households be added. This article pertains to 5.48 acres of a 9.7 acre parcel purchased by the town in 2001 for $1.1 million. The assessed value of the 9.7 acres is $194,000. Proceeds from any sales shall be deposited in reserve stabilization trust or other fund designated to the fund's town's long-term liabilities in accordance with Section 5 of the Town of Medfield financial policies. The terms of the development of the property will be senior housing with handicapped accessible units. A minimum of 25% will be affordable deed restricted with 70% local preference with reasonable initial pricing and sustainable resale pricing for a period of time. In January 2019, the Senior Housing Council released the results of a 2018 survey of Medfield households with at least one person 55 or older. The survey indicated a high demand for senior housing, with 63% of respondents stating they would move to senior housing in the next 2 years if it were available. The development of this property will contribute to the availability of senior housing. The Warrant Committee supports passage of this article.
Okay, well, thank you. And we have a presentation, short presentation from Selectman Mike Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I'm pleased to present Article 26 on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust. This relates to, as mentioned in the article, the so-called Hinckley parcel of land and the part that's in green with the star there that's next to the Council on Aging. The purpose here is to enhance the very woefully inadequate supply of senior housing in the town of Medfield. We have 2 senior housing surveys over the course of the last 3 years, which have identified a substantial need for additional senior housing in Medfield, a need that is not being met currently by the market. And this is a piece of land that the town can use to advance this when private developers on privately owned land are not pushing for these kinds of developments. Now, there is a reality check to this article and to this issue. I mean, there is a reason it has been more than 20 years since any senior-focused housing has been developed in Medfield. We cannot satisfy every single senior in Medfield and what everyone wants. We're limited by the law, and we're limited by the market. So we really have 2 choices on this issue coming off those senior housing studies. One is just to do nothing and wait to see if the federal or state government does something. Or the second choice is the one that the Affordable Housing Trust has opted for, which is to do what we can to make some small amount of progress. So this is a modest first step. We're talking 20, 24 units of housing based on the original model for this property that was identified by the Medfield Hospital Master Planning Committee. This would be home ownership. It would be restricted to 62 plus. And it would be a similar type development to Turtle Brook. So those of you who are familiar with Turtle Brook over off of Dale Street, it is a similar concept on this piece of land. Medfield Preference. For market rate developments, we cannot restrict the sale of market rate housing in Medfield to Medfield residents. It's not legal under federal law. State law, when there is an affordable development, a so-called friendly 40B, which this would be, we are allowed to request, at the sufferance of the state, the maximum Medfield preference, which would be 70% of the affordable units. And because of the work we have done so far, we have asked for this preference on every project that we've done, and we've received it. Development process, if the town meeting approves this, the Board of Selectmen will issue an RFP to private developers. The Council on Aging will have input onto that RFP and to the specifications. And we'll pick the best proposal that best meets the parameters we're laying out tonight. And it could be a 2 to 3 year process from approval tonight to somebody actually moving in. From a financial standpoint, if you compare it again to Turtle Brook, which is a 24-unit for sale senior development in Medfield, generates about $150,000 of tax revenue per year. Impact on town services are minimal, few if any additional school children, so no cost impact there. And we do have capacity in the police department, certainly the fire department and the DPW to handle any additional calls. Under our housing production plan adopted in 2016, for those of you who have followed along, we have made good progress. We are about 35 to 45 units short of achieving compliance with the state's 40B law through at least 2030, based on what our estimate is for the census in 2020. We'll need about 35 to 45 units in addition to what's currently in the pipeline. This would add 6 units to our affordable count. This is just generally a sketch of a potential concept plan. The exact layout and design will come from the developers in response. So the trust certainly asks for your support of this article. Again, it's a modest first step. It's not going to be everything to anybody, but it would move the needle a little bit and show support in the town for developing some additional senior housing. Thank you.
I'm going to stay there in case there are questions. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, well, if there are none, we'll put it to a vote. It does require a 2/3 vote. We have one question here on microphone number 2.
Yes, Jim Nail, 97 Hartford Street. As I recall, last year there was a proposal with a somewhat similar goal. There was an overlay district, and it had some similar weaknesses that I saw very briefly that you talked about, in that we can't restrict market rate housing, and what I didn't see there is for the affordable units, if I remember correctly, last year, the affordable units, there was no restriction on resale, whether they would remain affordable.
So that's a difference here. So under the overlay district would have done this as a market rate project. Mm-hmm. Because this is going under the 40B, friendly 40B, the affordable units, for all of the affordable units we develop in Medfield, there's a permanent deed restriction. So for the 6 affordable units, they would remain affordable in perpetuity. The exact resale price would be redefined on each sale based on the state's formula for calculating that.
And though I know the number of units will depend on the developer and his plan, do you have an estimate of how many of those 400 plus units will be able to meet with this?
Probably, if I had to, the median would be 24. I would say between 20 to 30, best guess is 24. When the hospital committee laid it out, they laid it out as a 24-unit development. Okay. So there's just not that much room there for more than that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll put it to a vote. It is a motion authorizing the Board of Selectmen to enter into a ground lease for the development of senior housing on town-owned land off of Ice House Road. It does require a 2/3 vote for passage. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'm going to deem that it does carry by 2/3 vote. Efficiency and efficiency and deliberate dispatch by acting upon certain articles as a group. For reference, you can look to pages 18 and 19 of the report of the warrant.